Welcome back, viewers. You are still tuned into Prime Live, and tonight we have the privilege of welcoming Gina Jacobs, who is a mental health advocate and an author who will be participating in the Be a Safe Man event as part of the 16 days of activism against gender-based violence. Now, Gina brings us a unique perspective as well as a deep commitment to addressing the mental health as well as the safety of women and children, particularly in the context of gender-based violence. Good evening, and thank you so much for joining us on Prime Live.
Good evening. Good evening. Thank you for having me.
I mean, I'm so excited to delve into this conversation. Particularly, I'm even more excited by the title of this event. This is exactly the kind of conversation that we need. But can you tell us a bit more about yourself, your work as a mental health advocate, as well as your involvement in the Be a Safe Man event?
Well, I am a coach, an author, and a mental health activist, as you've mentioned. And my passion lies in collective healing. And I would say that as a woman who has been through a traumatic divorce, that was really what inspired the work that I do. Because in navigating my own healing, I realized so many of us were in the same boat. And so I'm very passionate about helping us get to what I call the point where we invoke the matriarch and we have the matriarch rising. Because I do think that in our space and in this time that we live in, we have not ourselves been empowered enough to say that I can confidently shape and guide society. So that is where I am in terms of my work.
Wow, that was very, very powerfully said, and I'm so moved by what you said. You know, being the daughter of a single parent, my mother was also, had to undergo a traumatic divorce and, find that same power that you're talking about, the power of being the matriarch, overcoming that trauma. So that was really, really powerful. Thank you for sharing that. What I want to talk about is I'm so excited by this event that is taking place. I think this is exactly the kind of conversations we need to be having when it comes to gender-based violence. What would you feel, would you describe would be the main purpose of the Be a Safe Man event, and what inspired its creation?
I think there are men who are also just as exhausted of the ripple effect of toxic masculinity. And I think it is these men, such as Jabu Zwane, who has decided to take up the mantle and say, we need to talk to our brothers and we need to do better. We need to have us develop as men into a place whereby our masculinity is safe and our masculinity is healthy. And I think this is what drives that conversation. It's a conversation of accountability, of emotional regulation, of learning, and it is a conversation that fosters healthy dialogue between men. I don't know, you might agree with me, but there are many initiatives. Even I have an initiative coming up on the 16th for women, the Matriarch Rising. And there are so many initiatives for women and for girls, but men are not necessarily focused on in terms of their mental well-being. And what really involved me in his work was the desire to help, the fellow man become a safer space for the sister, for the woman, and for the daughter. And as a mother of a 25-year-old myself, I'm very interested in the mental and emotional well-being of young men, because it is these very young men who marry these daughters that we raise.
Now, I really love
and so
that.
That is my inspiration for being part of his movement.
I think that switch up in conversation and the direction in which it's changed is so powerful, in the sense that I think Aisha and I also spoke about this on the show on Friday, is that there is so much emphasis on the girl child. There are so many projects and initiatives to empower, to embrace, and to, grow the girl child. But hardly do you ever hear of any conversations, any initiatives that are focusing on young men, teaching them to be men. What does it mean to be men? What does it mean to take care of your mental health? What does it mean to be a man in society? What does it mean to take accountability? I think there aren't enough platforms and programs that do focus and really harness and empower the potential that young men have in South Africa. And they are very much part of the conversation when it comes to gender-based violence. So I think, enough of the days where we sit and have roundtable discussions about gender-based violence and how we're supposed to solve it when we aren't addressing the elephant in the room, which is the complete lack of emphasis and attention on men and mental health, and addressing those toxic male masculinity traits that are inevitably being shared in our communities and in our societies. But what I also want to talk to you about is this is an incredible event, and I love that this is the direction in which the conversation is being driven. For you particularly, in your personal journey, as well as your great emphasis on creating some much needed sense of awareness when it comes to mental health and the relation of that between gender-based violence, why did you decide to participate in this event?
As I just briefly mentioned, I am very passionate about collective healing, not only as women, but as men and women. Because if we no matter how much advancement we do in our own personal capacity as women, if the men are not ready for that healed woman, he will break her down again. And I feel that it is the responsibility of each and every one of us who feel that we love men in our lives, we have sons in our lives, we have husbands in our lives. It is our place to be standing there and speaking to them and understanding the plights and the things that they are going through. Because once they've been through these talks, they come back home and stay with us and live with us. And if we are not part of the conversation, then it becomes redundant. We need to hold each other's hands as we uplift one another in our healing. And we must remember that we are historically a very wounded people. And being historically wounded, there was no space to allow that healing to take place. And we just having to figure it out on our own. And I was just saying yesterday, a big part of the anger that we experience between the genders, especially online, I come to the conclusion that it is not really directed towards one another. It's because there is no channel to direct it to the right space. And so we are all we've got to navigate it. And if we were to approach each other from that point of compassion and wanting to understand, I think we would get so much further ahead. And that is why I'm part of this panel that's coming up on the 12th.
I couldn't agree more. I think men also need to be nurtured, need to be protected, and need to be empowered. And like you said, very powerfully involved and part of the conversation as well. But when it comes to the upcoming event, what can viewers at home expect from the upcoming event? As well as, can you briefly also touch on the event that you will be hosting as part of the 16 Days of Activism, the Matriarch event as well?
All right. Okay, I can do that. I think attendees, what they would be able to find is an open platform that is free of judgment, that is meant to help them learn and grow in their capacities and detox of whatever notions they had of what it means to be a man. Because we must remember that many of these men were not raised by men themselves. And so they have never had the experience of witnessing what it means to be a healthy man. And so this is about rewriting the narrative of their belief system and possibly their identities. And so as a participant, as a man, you get to share in a space where your struggle as a man and your doubts and fears will be accommodated, will be heard, and where you will be pointed in the right direction as to acquire the skills to become the man that you would want to be. A man that is, first of all, safe to himself before being safe to the next person. Because that is another challenge that we have when men don't know what to do and they fall into these depressive spaces and become in danger, not only to us female, but to themselves as well. So that is the one thing that they would be able to get. There would be panel discussions where you would be able to share your stories expert insights would be there, moderated conversations would be there, and I'm part of the moderation team as well to ensure that engagement is fruitful and productive. And that is what you can expect on the day as an attendee. And at the Matriarch Rising, it is an event, a ladies' lunch, a soiree, if you will, that will be taking place in Pretoria at the Goddess Cafe. It is called the Matriarch Rising because there are also not as many spaces where we can really talk about some of us who have been in really dark spaces with people who are not healthy, who have been diagnosed with having personality disorders. And that is just not the normal run-in-the-mill separation of a relationship. You come out of there so severely damaged. Sometimes some people never come out. They never leave that space of being damaged and wounded and in pain. And therefore, that is the rest of their life. And this is to say that you are a sisterhood with us, and we have been there, and we have gone through it, the healing process, as painful as it was, as ugly as it was, and we've come out on the other side, and this is who we are today.
Absolutely.
So you
Gina,
can do
thank
it
you so
too.
much for sharing with us. Unfortunately, we have run out of time. We would love to have you back on the show to
Thank you
talk
so
more
much.
about the incredible work that you have done. But thank you so much for joining us. This has been empowering and insightful, and we look forward to all the future events you will be holding as well. Viewers at home,
Much, much appreciated.